Hello again, BookTube. I'm Mike, and this is RiffRaff's Reading Renaissance. And today I want to talk about my epic quest to read Moby Dick. I've had this book for a little while, and I've been trying to gear up to the challenge of actually reading it. But before I get that far, let's start with why myself and the vast population, even of readers, don't tend to read Moby Dick. There are a couple of reasons. First of all, it's big, right? 650 pages. Secondly, it's about whales. And who cares about whales? And thirdly, we're told it's as inscrutable and monstrous as the big whale itself. So what's changed? What have I been missing? And why did I decide to tackle this particular journey? As part of RiffRaff's Reading Renaissance, I have acquired a couple of books to help me understand what there is out there to read. And I want to share with you a little bit of each of them. But perhaps I'll introduce them by seeing what each of them had to say about Moby Dick. The first one is called Books That Changed the World. And if I read what they have to say about Moby Dick, it says, Herman Melville's meandering but highly original epic of the hunt for a great white whale was a major landmark in the emergence of a distinctive American literature. Moby Dick demonstrated in 1851 that the young nation of the United States had its own unique literary voice, capable of dealing with the heights and depths of human experience. It is widely regarded as the first great American novel, and some would say it has never been surpassed. Let's turn now to the second book. This is called How to Be Well Read, a guide to 500 great novels and a handful of literary curiosities by John Sutherland. And if we look up what he says about Moby Dick, it starts by saying, the world to which Moby Dick was delivered was not ready for Herman Melville's masterpiece, nor would it be for 70 years. Some ultra-Melvillians claim it still isn't. Okay. And now let's check out the third book, one of my personal favorites because of its sense of humor. It's called Beowulf on the Beach, What to Love and What to Skip in Literature's 50 Greatest Hits. And if I ask it what it thinks of Moby Dick, it says, the sea monster to end all sea monsters, a 10-ton, 60-foot sperm whale, white as a baby's butt and just as explosive, plus a demented old salt, peg-legging himself out of the Old Testament to chase down the demon of the sea and the soul. But psst, come over here, I want to tell you a secret. Moby Dick, you know, that gigantic novel with all the boring whaling stuff in it, is funny. I mean really funny, as in one of the funniest books of all time. Intriguing. Next up is Harold Bloom's How to Read and Why. Let's ask him about Moby Dick. Herman Melville's Moby Dick is the indisputable ancestor of the 6 modern American novels I shall consider in this chapter, in 2 sequences. The first is constituted by Faulkner's As I Lay Dying, Nathaniel West's Miss Lonely Hearts, Thomas Pynchon's The Crying of Lot 49, and Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. How to read Moby Dick is a vast enterprise, as befits one of the few authentic contenders for our national epic. High praise indeed. And last but not least, the Western Lit Survival Kit, How to Read the Classics Without Fear, by Sandra Newman. Let's see what Sandra wants to tell us about Moby Dick. Come on. Why can't I find the page? Here we go. Getting there. Right, Melville's Moby Dick. With his next book, Melville's mind wandered from the bottom line and into the deep philosophical waters that turned Moby Dick into the great American novel to beat. What's so great about it? First, Melville added to the story everything he knew and everything he thought. Histories, whaling techniques, sailors' tales, biology lessons, all carried forward by the pursuit of Ahab's brilliant vision. Melville could also be very funny, there it is again, with a sharp off-kilter humour, but most wonderfully he makes us all feel like we're really on the voyage, with the long, eventless months at sea, the intense claustrophobic society of the sailors, the drama of battling a sperm whale from a rowboat. All of it is an unforgettable read. Okay, so they've convinced me. There's clearly something here I need to experience. So slightly daunted by the scale of the book, I set myself a goal of 25 pages a day, which meant I would consume the 650-page book in 26 days. And reconciled to be reading buddies for nearly a month, I settled down with Layla, my own black Leviathan, to read all about the White Leviathan. So let's check in with Reader Mike along his epic journey to see how it's going. I hear the writing is immediately impressive. This is the description of Elijah, the strange individual who accosts Queequeg and Ishmael. He was but shabbily apparelled in faded jacket and patched trousers, a rag of a black handkerchief investing his neck. A confluence smallpox had in all directions flowed over his face, and left it like the complicated ribbed bed of a torrent when the rushing waters have been dried up. Ship and boat diverged. The cold, damp night breeze blew between. A screaming gull flew overhead. The two hulls wildly rolled. We gave 3 heavy-hearted cheers and blindly plunged like fate into the lone Atlantic. And there is indeed some humorous writing. Top-heavy was the ship, as a dinnerless student with all Aristotle in his head. But the deviations from the narrative can be tough going. It's a little bit like a balancing act. The narrative races ahead and grabs you and is very exciting and very gripping. And then suddenly when some new item is introduced to the story, be it ambergris or some new type of whale or some new type of boat, suddenly we're off for 2 or 3 chapters of detailed explanation, textbook style. That's not always great, but something keeps you going. And I will admit to having had passages and periods in the book where I'm sort of hanging in for the actual storyline to re-emerge. It reminded me a little bit of the sort of Tristan Shandy type of never miss the opportunity for a major deviation into some sort of long-winded side channel before coming back to the point of the story. But boy, what a story. The story is indeed gripping and the writing is exquisite. At such times, under an abated sun, afloat all day upon smooth, slow, heaving swells, seated in his boat, light as a birch canoe, and so sociably mixing with the soft waves themselves, that like half-stone cats they purr against the gunwale. These are the times of dreamy quietude, when beholding the tranquil beauty and brilliancy of the ocean's skin, one forgets the tiger heart that pants beneath it, and would not willingly remember that this velvet paw but conceals a remorseless fang. And despite the beauty of the language, Melville's tendency to excess includes the sheer length of his sentences. Deep breath. Though amid all the smoking horror and diabolism of a sea fight, sharks will be seen longingly gazing up to the ship's decks, like hungry dogs around a table where red meat is being carved, ready to bolt down every killed man that is tossed to them, and though, while the valiant butchers over the deck table are thus cannibally carving each other's live meat with carving knives, all gilded and tasseled, the sharks also, with their jewel-hilted mouths, are quarrelsomely carving away under the table at the dead meat, and though, were you to turn the whole affair upside down, it would still be pretty much the same thing. That is to say, a shocking sharkish business enough for all parties, though sharks also are the invariable outriders of all slave ships crossing the Atlantic, systematic trotting alongside to be handy in case a parcel is to be carried anywhere, or a dead slave to be decently buried, and though one or two other like instances might be set down, touching the set terms, places, and occasions when sharks do most socially congregate, and most hilariously feast, yet is there no conceivable time or occasion when you will find them in such countless numbers, and in gayer or more jovial spirits, than around a dead sperm whale, moored by night to a whale ship at sea. That was one sentence. We're now at about page 450. It is dragging a little bit when they go into endless detail. I keep wanting to say, get back to the story. The story's exciting. Stick to the point. But then it's all an experience. This is a really strange book. It sucks you in, and every time you feel you're getting distracted by meandering lessons about whales, you put it down, and a few minutes later, you feel you have to pick it up again. I'll be honest, I don't really understand why, but I will say, a bit like the whale perhaps, something's got its hooks in me. When the narrative returns to the Pequod and the action on board, it's riveting, especially for a guy like me who had absolutely no interest in whales or seafaring stories or anything like that. And the writing itself is astoundingly good, if hard work. I've encountered more new words to add to my vocabulary in reading this book than many I can remember. And done. All of it is an unforgettable read. This is a 650-page book, and I read it in 13 days. That's an average clip of 50 pages a day, which, given my day job and my slow reading rate, will tell you how much this book kept pulling me back in every time I tried to put it down. I'm not sure how to feel on completion, apart from a sense of accomplishment, if I'm honest, that unlike Ahab, perhaps, I have conquered my almighty whale. This is not merely a rattling good sea story, it really is a reading experience. I'll try and avoid the awful pun of saying that Ahab clearly had a bone to pick with Moby, a leg bone to be specific. The biblical allusions come through strongly. Ishmael from the Bible, the son of Abraham and the Egyptian slave Hagar, was the outcast and the wanderer, the survivor narrator, and the lone witness, all parallels with this novel. Captain Ahab references back to the Bible's King Ahab, who was an evil obsessive. Elijah, the prophet, who condemned King Ahab, is rather like the strange figure who warns Ishmael and the crew of the impending doom in the early part of the book. It's a bit tempting to make comparisons between this novel and the later novels Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad and The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway, which all have in common slightly dodgy captains of shipping vessels on missions that turn out to be somewhat tragic. Or even Milton's Satan in Paradise Lost, a complex, charismatic, almost heroic figure in rebellion. And Melville's ships aren't randomly named either. The Pequod is named for a Native American tribe in Connecticut, foreshadowing doom and extinction. The Albatross is a symbol of burden and omen, as in the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. And the Rachel, the rescue ship, echoes the biblical Rachel interceding for Israel's lost children, ending their exile. So overall, a combination of mellifluous writing and riveting narrative. Oh, and a whale encyclopedia. In his book that we referred to earlier, Harold Bloom talks about the extraordinary zest of the narrative of the story, and I think that's a very fair comment. When one gets into the narrative, away from the encyclopedia bits, the narrative really is riveting and all-encapsulating. It sucks you in. there's no doubt that it's a book that will draw you back in, probably time and time again. The 1970s saw a revival in the popularity of Moby Dick with a focus on queer literature, picking up on Ishmael's relationship with Queequeg and the passage about removing the oil from the sperm whale, which D.H. Lawrence describes as surely the oldest piece of phallicism in all of world literature. I'm also mindful of the reference that American poet Mary Oliver makes in her poem The Humpbacks, when she refers to the whales as carrying their tonnage of barnacles and joy, which is a very powerful image of these massive creatures who really don't mean anyone any harm unless they're interfered with first. And in a preemptive strike for BookTube's Poetry Thursdays, this book put me in mind of John Masefield's great poem of another soul who sought solace from seafaring. I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky, and all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by, and the wheels kick and the wind's song and the white sails shaking, and a grey mist on the sea's face, and a grey dawn breaking. I must go down to the seas again, for the call of the running tide is a wild call and a clear call that may not be denied. And all I ask is a windy day with the white clouds flying, and the flung spray and the blown spume and the seagulls crying. I must go down to the seas again, to the vagrant gypsy's life, to the gull's way and the whale's way, where the wind's like a whetted knife. And all I ask is a merry yarn from a laughing fellow rover, and a quiet sleep and a sweet dream when the long trick's over. So all in all, a richly rewarding experience, not for the faint-hearted, not to be taken on lightly, but well worth the effort. The writing alone is an experience of quite how great literature can be, and of course the overwhelming imagery and allusions just lend you a lifetime's worth of contemplation. And finally, the musician in me wants to tell you all to listen to the songs that the book brought to my mind. The late great Stan Rogers and his songs about Canadian whaling and exploration, songs like The Last Watch, White Squall, Free in the Harbour and Northwest Passage. I'll post some YouTube links below for you to give it a try. And of course the song that became a TikTok sensation, The Wellerman, Nathan Evans' 2021 version of the 19th century New Zealand whaling ballad that goes, soon may the weatherman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum, and one day when the tonguing's done, we'll take our leave and go. And as the wellerman takes his leave, so must I. Thank you so much for listening. Please consider liking and subscribing for more of the same. Goodbye, BookTube.